For years, the truth stayed hidden, the victims forgotten, the cases left cold, until science revealed what time could not. This is Decades in the Dark, where cold cases are brought back to light. May 5th, 1993, West Memphis, Arkansas. 3 8-year-old boys, Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, pedaled their bikes into the woods near their neighborhood. It was a warm spring evening, nothing unusual. But by nightfall, they hadn't come home. Their parents called police, neighbors combed the streets, panic spread through the community. And then, the following afternoon, a searcher spotted something in the muddy waters of Robin Hood Hills. The bodies of the 3 children, stripped, bound, brutally beaten. A nightmare had just begun. The sight was almost too horrific to process. Each boy had been hogtied with his own shoelaces, wrists bound to ankles, their small bodies folded and restrained. They were dumped into a drainage ditch, naked, their clothes tossed nearby, waterlogged, dirty, some turned inside out as if pulled off in haste. Why were they unclothed? Some said the killer was trying to erase evidence, fibers, fluids, anything that could connect him. Others thought it was meant to humiliate, to dominate. At first, police even whispered about a sexual motive. Later, experts disagreed, saying many of the supposed injuries could have come after death from animals in the water. Stevie Branch and Michael Moore had been beaten. Christopher Byers bore even more injuries, ones some called mutilation, others believed were caused later, after death. And yet, even with a scene this horrific, police didn't lock it down. Searchers and officers waded in. Evidence was moved, touched, trampled. From the very beginning, the truth of Robin Hood Hills was slipping away. West Memphis was in shock. Parents were terrified. The pressure to find a killer was suffocating. And so police turned their eyes to 3 local teenagers, Damien Echols, 18, Jason Baldwin, 16, Jessie Misskelley Jr., 17. Damien dressed in black. He listened to Metallica. He read Stephen King and books on the occult. Jason was his loyal best friend. Jessie was quiet, vulnerable, with an IQ that made him easy to manipulate. They weren't popular, they didn't fit in, and in the eyes of investigators, they looked guilty. Why? Because America was in the grip of a cultural fever. The 1980s and 90s, a time when the word Satanism could terrify an entire town. The panic didn't start in West Memphis. It began years earlier, in 1980, with a book called Michelle Remembers. It claimed to be the true story of a woman recovering memories of childhood abuse at the hands of a satanic cult. The book was later discredited, but by then, the damage was done. Police departments, church groups, even social workers began using it as proof that underground satanic cults were real. Daycares soon became the focus. With more children in daycare than ever before, parents were uneasy. And when investigators believed abuse might be happening, they asked children leading questions. Did your teacher hurt you? Were there tunnels under the school? Did they make you watch animals die? Eager to please adults, and highly suggestible, many children said yes, even when nothing had happened. Their stories grew stranger with each retelling. The most infamous case was the McMartin preschool trial in California. Children there claimed they were taken through secret tunnels, flown in hot air balloons, and forced into satanic ceremonies. No evidence was ever found, yet the trial lasted 7 years, cost $15 million, and ruined lives. No one was convicted. But by then, the hysteria had spread. Talk shows, police seminars, and sensational books convinced communities that satanic cults were everywhere, hiding in plain sight. And so by 1993, when 3 boys were found murdered in West Memphis, the story was already written. The brutality, the nudity, the bindings, and 3 local teens who wore black listened to Metallica and stood apart. Police didn't need hard evidence. They had fear. On June 3rd, police brought in Jessie Misskelley Jr. They interrogated him for hours. No lawyer, no parents. Just a frightened 17-year-old boy with limited understanding and detectives determined to get a confession. And eventually, they did. Jessie told a story, but it didn't match reality. He said the boys were attacked in the morning, when in fact they'd been at school. He fumbled timelines, got details wrong. The more he spoke, the less it made sense. Experts say false confessions happen more than we want to believe. After hours of questioning, exhaustion takes over. Police feed information through leading questions. Vulnerable suspects start parroting it back. Sometimes they think if they just agree, they'll get to go home. But once words are on record, they're powerful. Even if the details are wrong, even if the facts don't line up. And Jessie's shaky confession became the cornerstone of the case. The courtroom was less about evidence and more about image. Prosecutors painted Damien as a devil worshipper. They pointed to his black clothes, his interest in the occult, his music taste. They brought in so-called experts who claimed the murders had ritual elements. But there was no DNA, no fingerprints, no reliable eyewitnesses. Still, fear spoke louder than fact. Damien was sentenced to death. Jason to life in prison without parole. Jessie to life plus 40 years. The West Memphis Three, condemned for who they were, not what they did. As the years dragged on, the cracks widened. Forensic experts re-examined the case. The so-called ritual wounds, likely the work of animals in the ditch. The blood evidence, thin. New DNA testing showed no link to Damien, Jason, or Jessie. But it did uncover something else. A single hair on a shoelace, consistent with one of the victim's stepfathers. Not conclusive, but enough to raise serious doubts. The case might have faded away, if not for the cameras. In 1996, HBO released Paradise Lost, the child murders at Robin Hood Hills. Viewers saw the shaky evidence, the fear-driven prosecution, the teenagers portrayed as monsters. 2 sequels followed. Paradise Lost 2, Revelations in 2000, Paradise Lost 3, Purgatory in 2011. Together, they reshaped public opinion. Celebrities like Eddie Vedder, Johnny Depp, and Natalie Maines joined the cause. Money poured in for appeals. Public pressure mounted. The world was watching, and West Memphis could no longer look away. Finally, in 2011, after 18 years behind bars, the West Memphis Three were offered a deal, the Alford plea. It meant they could walk free, but only if they pled guilty. A legal paradox, declaring innocence while admitting the state had enough evidence to convict. It was a bitter choice, freedom in exchange for the stain of guilt. Damien, Jason, and Jessie agreed. They walked out of prison, but in the eyes of the law, they were still guilty. Over the years, suspicion has shifted away from Damien, Jason, and Jessie and toward other possible suspects. One was Terry Hobbs, stepfather of Stevie Branch. In 2007, DNA testing revealed a hair consistent with Hobbs on the shoelace of one of the victims. His story of that night shifted over time, though he has always denied involvement and has never been charged. Another was John Mark Byers, stepfather of Christopher Byers. His fiery personality and inconsistent statements made him an early suspect. He even handed over a knife with what appeared to be blood on it, but testing showed the blood matched him and possibly his son. In time, Byers became one of the strongest advocates for the West Memphis Three's innocence. And then there's the mystery of the Mr. Bojangles man. On the night of the murders, a man described as black stumbled into a Bojangles restaurant near the crime scene. He was covered in blood and mud, clearly injured. Staff called police. An officer arrived, but never went inside. The next day, samples from the blood-stained bathroom were collected, but somewhere along the way, they were lost or contaminated. The man was never identified. Some believe he could have been the true killer, hidden in plain sight. Others argue it may have been a transient passing through, someone with no connection to the boys who vanished before he could ever be identified. If the West Memphis Three didn't kill Stevie, Michael, and Christopher, who did? Was it a stranger passing through? Someone closer to the victims? Is the real killer still out there, hidden by the mistakes of an investigation gone wrong? The boys remain dead. The truth remains buried. And 3 men remain scarred by nearly 2 decades in prison for a crime they may not have committed. What do you think? Were the West Memphis Three guilty? Or victims of satanic panic and a broken justice system? Let me know in the comments. This is Decades in the Dark, where science brings the past to light. Subscribe for more stories where justice never expires.